Support LaneSide. Get something cool.
Alright guys, so welcome back. As always, I am the Bearded Beast, and well, we have something really special in front of us here. This is the new hammer effect. Well, let's get into it. I'll kind of explain what's going on. Now, as soon as I saw this ball and I saw the numbers, and especially the core shape, I had to go to the bigwigs. I had to go to the core designers. So I contacted Brian Bakosh from Brunswick and said, yo, dude, what's going on here? Because this, I mean, it looks like something I've seen before, but, well, this is different. And according to Brian, he said that the core body in this is the hourglass shape similar to the Vibe, which puts more mass above and below the core center. Now, I remember years ago talking to the guys at Ebonite, and they did a lot of research into the placement of mass above and below the equator to create more continuation. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, all right, so we're going to have a little bit of a Vibe look here. But then it's got some, well, it's got a mass bias. The Vibe doesn't have a mass bias. So Brian continued, it has an extruded sphere feature in the same area of the Widow gas mask to create its asymmetry. So what you're telling me is they took the Vibe, which is super good, and then they took the Widow series, which is like super good, and they put them together. Now, wrapped around it is a brand new HK22 cover stock, which is, well, in talking to Brian, he said that this is definitely like nothing else that anyone has thrown in the brands of Brunswick. They found a new additive package, or a new combination of additives that literally glues this thing to the lane. Like, when it sees friction, it has a footprint on it that's like, well, like nothing else that we've ever seen. So to make sure that we get the most out of this ball, I'm actually going to lay out each one separately so that you can see the layouts that we're using for our bowlers. Okay, so the first hammer effect that we're going to lay out here is for our Speed Dominance / Rev Challenged Bowler. That's our old guy Wayne. Now, we want to make sure that this ball sees the mid lanes because of his, well, lack of revs, or for a player who has way too much speed. We want to make sure that it sees that mid lane and has a strong motion to it. So as you can see, I've already drawn my pin to mass bias line here. And we're going to go with a 55-degree drill angle. So it's not going to be too long, but it's going to be long enough. We don't want this thing to be seeing the friction right as soon as it hits the lanes. And to further that, we're going to draw our pin to pap line here. Whoop. And we're going to make it 5 inches. Now some people are going to say, well, that's a pretty long pin to pap for a speed dominant player. But here's the thing. We already know that once we get this pin to pap more than 3.5 inches, we're at max flare. So now what we're doing is we're figuring out where we want the ball to flare. And we want a little bit more energy down lane towards the break point. So that's where we want our biggest flare pattern, so it has the most fresh cover, so it can make its strongest motion to the pocket. Now, to help that as well, we're going to go with a 35-degree val angle. So this thing is going to be fairly fast response. Let's just mark that on there. Now that we have this laid out, there's something that's very important. I know a lot of people and a lot of shops out there don't believe this, but checking pap regularly is very important. I do it with all of my bowlers every 12 to 18 months because of the changes in our body, in our spans, our flexibilities, even how we're throwing the ball. Things change over time, and if you don't keep on top of it, you'll end up with laying out a ball that's doing something that you didn't expect it to do. So next, we're going to go down to the lanes here. We're going to grab one of Wayne's balls, and we're going to mark off the oil line on it, and we're going to reverse engineer and find his pap. Alright guys, we're back from the center and we've got his pap. Now when we backtracked off of his ball there, we found out that his pap hasn't changed much. He's still at 1/8 by 5 1/8 over. So let's put that on the ball here. Now, as I said, even if it doesn't change, it's important to stay on top of it, because you never know when it is going to change. To give you an idea, about, well, a year and a half ago when we got back from the pandemic, all of our paps had changed just slightly because we had been off. So it's very important to make sure that you stay on top of this kind of thing. Alright, so we've marked, and we're going to come across here, and we're going to measure to 5 1/8. Boom. And let's draw that line. And you can see here, one of the other cool things about this ball, we've got dot, which means that because of Wayne's finger here, his finger would normally be 1 and 1.5 inches from his cut line for his finger, which would void the warranty. But not with dot. Dot means that we don't have to worry about that. We can drill wherever we want. We could even drill through that if we wanted to. Alright, so now we've got some lines on here. We know where we're going to drill it. Next up, we got to figure out how we're going to lay out nicks.